Good afternoon, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode. Yes, at least one more episode of Monday Afternoon Quarterback. I'm your host, Rob Schuh. Very excited to be joined once again, as we were last week, by the co-host of the Sprint Right Option podcast, Jason Aponte. Jason, how are you doing today, man?
Today, being able to sit here with 8K Rob, listen to your beautiful voice, and celebrate this win against the Dallas Cowboys. Three C's to the win on Cloud 9.
Oh, it is sweet. It is so sweet. Doesn't matter how freaking down to the wire this one may have gone. Doesn't matter what ESPN or NFL.com or anyone else is saying today. The Niners have another game in the playoffs coming up. And there's just nothing better than meaningful January and February football. Am I right?
You nailed it right there, right? And again, the thing that a lot of people don't like to talk about is how people felt when things started the way that they did. And right now, I know people don't like the whole term of, house money, or anything like that, but you are playing with house money at this point, especially when you go back in the DeLorean and you go and you look back at how people were viewing the season at a certain point. To be in this spot right now and to be one of the teams that a lot of people don't want to see is something that even the staunchest 49ers supporter probably wouldn't have seen unless they just are, optimist, which, I wish I could be like that. But yeah, not many of us saw it like this.
No, we didn't. I mean, you said it, sitting there at 3-5. I don't think there were many people that remained faithful at that point. But what we saw yesterday was epic. I mean, we have many sneakerheads here in the chat already. Eric calling out at Rob Schuh. This was an all-time classic. Beating the Cowboys. So sweet. Cap speaking, it was so sweet to him that he just had to come in and talk about those Cowboy tears. I will say that I don't often take joy in anyone else's discomfort, but I had a hard time not cracking a smile at some of the gifs and other things that went out on Twitter today with regard to the Cowboys fans toward the end of the game. Again, I don't like to poke fun at other people's pain, but it felt pretty good. I'm not going to lie.
Nah, well, that's why you're a good guy, and me, I'm much more petty. Because me, I was like, I had my TV like in front of me like that. It was like a fireplace. I just was warming my hands up to it, man. It was beautiful. Sorry for you, unfortunately. The problem is that so many of them were crying with like 4 minutes left, and the game was still well in the balance. Like
totally still in the balance.
I didn't understand that portion. If you want to cry when it's all zeros, I got you. But 4 minutes in, that one young lady, she was going through it, and that leads me to believe that maybe there was something else going on in her life that had nothing to do with that football game, because you couldn't have been crying right there at 4 minutes.
Yeah, when Romo on the broadcast is like, wait, it's not time to cry yet, then you know it's a little early. Couldn't get more of a Homer broadcast. Oh my goodness, yeah. That was something to behold. Chris Royal, one of our sneakerheads, coming in. Let's go, boys. On to Green Bay. That is the case. The Niners defeated the Dallas Cowboys. Have some redemption for some of the pain that I experienced earlier in my life as caused by the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, my more recent memory obviously was that game in 95 to close out the 94 season. That was sweet redemption. But it sets up to be a storybook type of season for the 49ers if they can keep this going for fans like myself that grew up in the era that we did. Knock off Dallas in their own house. Now head on to play Green Bay in their house with a chance to give them the boot as well. It couldn't have set up any better for my 17-year-old self.
I was gonna say this feels like a '90s redemption tour. Like the only other team that we should have been able to line up is probably the New York Giants or something like that. That's like the trifecta right there. It's not the Bucks and it's not anybody else that's left. Although it may turn into the Rams maybe, or it may turn into the Cardinals, which would that would be sweet. But if we're talking about straight up '90s Packers, Cowboys, Giants, it's like 1, 2, and 3 pretty much of like those teams that you hated in the NFC.
Yeah, I could wrap my head around a little revenge tour for the greatest show on turf if we ended up playing the Rams at the end. That would be sweet for me, but agreed, it's these first two that are so critical. And this first one in particular that was just, I mean, come on, forget about it. And it leads me into my first topic. being the fact that we have to appreciate just how difficult it is to win against a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who came in with the #1 offense in the league, to go on the road in the playoffs into a rival's house and beat them there on the road, again, against an elite offense, to come in and play the way that they did. Just really something to be appreciated by the Niner faithful.
I think you should, but I think that a lot of the frustration boils from whoever's frustrated at this point, because you really shouldn't be, because the result is what you wanted, was
Yes.
a little bit more offensive competency, and this game gets out of hand earlier, and we never have to go through all of that. Having said all of that, it is still just hard to score more points than the opponent in any sort of playoff game, let alone on the road. So you definitely need to appreciate that fact. And when you view it through that lens, it becomes a lot easier to realize that games are not going to be like this. This is the playoffs. Crazy things happen. And, there's going to be a team who wins and loses. It's all about who makes enough plays at the end of the game. And the 49ers did just that.
Yes, they did, against some pretty tall odds, right? I mean, again, I'll reiterate 1,000 times in this broadcast that the Cowboys had the #1, far and away, the #1 offense in the league, but the 49ers came out with elite defense and without their best player for the second half, and were able to make them look, I'd say, less than average. I pulled this from a Matt Barrows tweet. I'm going to reference a couple of tweets in this one because 49ers Twitter has just been on fire, as you can imagine, since beating the Cowboys yesterday. But Matt Barrows tweeted, 49ers survived despite losing Nick Bosa for the second half, losing Fred Warner for the last 8 minutes, 36 seconds. Another giant special teams gaffe. We'll get into more about that later. Late but very enthusiastic return of Bad Jimmy, not being able to gain 1 inch at the game's end. Those 5 things that you would have said any 3 of those 5 might have been enough to typically lose a game. But they won despite those things, and it is on to Green Bay. To me, this is now a team that has been battle-tested. This is a team that back-to-back weeks has won huge matchups in very critical win-or-go-home games.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And you kind of just took the thought right from my brain at that point. It's not everything's going to be perfect, and you just have to find a way to make more plays, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. That's for anybody out there who doesn't understand how football works. But yeah, it is just going to come down to how many ways can you win games when things are not perfect on both sides of the ball. Can you still make enough plays? Can you still overcome? And this team has been doing that all season. And they've won games in blowouts. They've won close games. They've won games at the buzzer. They won games where their defense had to make the stops. They won games where their offense had to make the plays. So battle test is the right way to look at it, and ready for anything at this point, because how many more scenarios can play out that are crazier than what we've seen not only these last 2 weeks, but this entire season for the 49ers?
Unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. This season has been one for just the ages. When we go back and look at this, there will be so much to break down. I'm bringing in a couple of super chats here. Chris Royal, one of our sneakerheads here on the channel. I want the Rams. We need another home game. A little bit of light humor there. That would be epic. I would love anything that brings us a little bit of lighter travel. We got a pretty shit week on the short end of it this week, having to come back home and then head out on 1 day less rest to go to Green Bay. I'm a little irritated at the NFL's decision to put the NFC on Saturday there. I do think that's rough for the 49ers, in particular with Nick Bosa clearing protocol. So if we are able to go out to Lambeau and snatch one, I'd love anything that gets us less travel.
Yeah, and that sounds good, because then you're really talking about this. You win an NFC Championship game there, and guess what? You get to stay there because the Super Bowl is there as well, too.
Yeah,
you guys get to just hang
back-to-back
out.
weeks.
Right, just go hang out real quick. You guys are going to miss the Pro Bowl.
Unbelievable. Yeah. By the way, I am going out to Green Bay. I wasn't able to make it out to Dallas. That life got in the way, but I am headed to Green Bay. Got everything booked. And Ekim, I saw on Jack's channel, I was just with Jack Hammer, great show, is talking about some type of unlimited buffet near the arena at Lambeau. Ekim, I'm going to need you to get me more information on this. Anytime you mention all-you-can-eat buffet as I'm going out to stand in the single digit cold. Man, I'm all over it. Jesse coming in at Rob Schuh. My wife is a Cowboys fan, so I definitely had to sleep on the couch last night because I let her have it, but it was worth it. Go Niners. I mean, that was a bold choice, Jesse. I give you, incredible props for standing up for the 49ers in that regard. I hope that your back is okay. I'm sure she was not pleased with your razzing. That's for sure. Rafa coming in with the super chat. All right, here we go. Trey Lance does have experience in cold weather. North Dakota State University. Also, isn't this game basically a rematch of the 2012 playoffs where Cap ran all over them? So this is just touching on, will we see Trey Lance? I've got to say, no, we will not, unless it is, the 49ers are down by some considerable amount or up and cruising at some point. And Kyle Shanahan is confident and in his bag, and he throws in one or two plays. But I do not see a scenario where we get any considerable runtime from Trey Lance, barring some type of an injury.
Yeah, that's it. Just injury at this point. It is what it is, and I get it. I get the sentiment. I get the idea of unload the bag because you need to win games. But it's Jimmy. It's Jimmy. As long as he can play, as long as tis a scratch, right? Like that joke with the what is that from? That's
the Monty Python.
The Monty Python, right?
Yes.
His arm is cut off, his leg is cut off. Tis a scratch. That's Jimmy Garoppolo, dude. Like now it's the thumb, it's the shoulder, my neck, my back, my neck and my back, and that's look. It's just gonna be Jimmy Garoppolo the rest of the way. That's it.
But your arm's off. No, it's not.
Right. No, it's not.
Classic Monty Python. Very good. If you have not seen The Holy Grail, go check that out. Old, good English comedy. Jonathan coming in, to all the people criticizing Jimmy, I get it. That said, you don't get more for style points. We just won a playoff game. Trey's the future, not now. I think that is the sentiment that Kyle Shanahan would say that he shares. I mean, certainly Trey is the future of this franchise. Certainly, I think we all believe in his abilities, his physical, athletic abilities, the way he attacks, preparation. All of these signs point to a good, upward trajectory for his career. But right now, Kyle Shanahan is focused on one thing, and that is winning the next game in front of him. And he believes that Jimmy Garoppolo gives him the best chance to do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not crazy to want to go back to the veteran who has played in these games that you feel comfortable with, that is able to operate the offense as well. I understand the unknown of Trey Lance can put defenses in a bad spot, and if he's able to run wild, then you have this almost unstoppable thing because it's not on film or anything like that. But Kyle Shanahan is conservative in many ways, and this is one way that he's mitigating his risk at this point. He really believes that as long as Jimmy Garoppolo is out there, he will not completely, vomit all over himself the entire game, right? Like it's usually like there's stretches, and that's just Jimmy, and we're going to get to that. We'll get to that. That's just Jimmy. Like at this point, if you haven't accepted that there's a roller coaster with Jimmy Garoppolo playing quarterback, then I don't understand. Like, and that's not me. That's not my opinion.
No,
it's an objective fact. It is an objective fact that the Jimmy Garoppolo experience is up, it's down, and then when you're done, you just hope you didn't puke. So that's just what it is.
Yes, your head is spinning toward the end of that ride. There is no doubt about it. All right, so in closing up that last topic where we're talking about a tough game, we talked about the fact that the Niners are now battle-tested. They stared adversity in the face, and they triumphed at the key points in this game, and they did so because of what I would say was just an amazing defensive effort. I'm going to quote a little bit from the David Lombardi article that he wrote in The Athletic. Paraphrasing this, actually, this is going to be a direct quotation here. The 49ers held Dallas, who entered as the NFL leader, averaging 31.2 points per game, going back to my statement about number one offense in the league, 2 touchdowns below their season average. The Cowboys managed only 4.4 yards per play. That would rank dead last in the league if extrapolated over a full season. And that is after managing 6 yards per play over the 17-game stretch in the actual regular season. So the 49ers took what was the best offense in the league and made them look pedestrian at best.
Yeah. And Aziz Al-Shaair being back, this defense being as healthy as it was. Now, unfortunately, obviously, we know what happened with Bosa and Warner, but D'Amico Ryans again. Credit D'Amico Ryans, credit this defense. They had a great game plan. And again, I think that's where the 49er fan who's happy they won, but is a little concerned going forward. And this is why they're concerned. Their first down came, I think, in the second quarter, and the 49ers were up 10-0. And that's the thing is this game, it played out that way where you shout out to Robbie Gould as well. You hit 250-yarders. Nobody going to say anything about that. Nobody going to say anything about that, buddy. But, 13-0 against that team, it should have felt like 21-0. And obviously you take your points and you trust your defense, but that sort of stuff isn't going to fly with better offenses, at least that are clicking better at this point right now, right? The Dallas Cowboys completely abandoned the run, put themselves in this position where you kind of just knew it was going to be pass. Even with that furious comeback at the end, that's where the majority of their yards in this game came from because they didn't have many. And by the way, you cannot blame the refs when the refs are calling obvious false starts on you. Like, right. I don't understand this blaming the ref thing. Like, the refs saw you false start, called a false start, and you're mad at the ref. You're not mad at your coaching staff. You're not mad at your players for what you've been doing. Lawrence is tackling Brunskill and just throwing him to the ground, but it's the refs, right? It's the refs' fault. Oh, wait, Dak Prescott, you don't know that you got to hand the ball off to the refs so you can spot the ball? Oh, wait, but that's the refs. This is such a typical Cowboy flame out, and then just at the end of the game, just piling themselves on. And you know what's weirder is that Dak regularly says the right thing all the time. And I'm so shocked that in that way he turned it from they're throwing stuff at us, we've been working hard. No, they were throwing at the refs. Oh, okay, then spot on for them. No, Dak, you need to take that back, and you need to really walk that one back because I understand you're frustrated. Think that, but never say it.
I totally agree with that. That reflected poorly on him. Just in the moment, I understand that he was probably extremely frustrated with himself for that moment, but to allow that to slip out of his mouth, it just does reflect poorly on him. There's no other way to put it. And you called that out, that the Cowboys fans are absolutely up in arms about all of the officiating mistakes that took place, but there were very few that there could be any question about whatsoever. I mean, there were no pass interference penalties, right? So none of those were up for debate. Every one of those holding calls was so egregious. I mean, so obvious that you couldn't legitimately one by one go through and say that any shouldn't have been a flag, and then the others are pre-snap penalties, right? So yes, the officials certainly called an exorbitant amount of penalties on the Cowboys, and they did that because the Cowboys committed an exorbitant number of penalties in that game, and they have no one to blame but themselves. And the 49ers deserve some credit for getting them into that state, for forcing them into a position where they felt so pressured and had to commit those penalties over and over and over again.
Yeah, and it's like your frustration is misplaced, Cowboys fans, Cowboys players, because where does that come from? Your team's not executing, it's coaching. And allow me to give you an old football man cliche. As a coach, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. Both are just as bad. So Mike McCarthy, it's you, bro. It's not them. It's not the refs. It's you. It's you, your players. Why is Lawrence tackling Brunskill when he's away from the play? Like, what do you gain
so strange.
from that? But the refs.
That was so out of character. Very strange indeed to watch that happen. And the defense just continued to frustrate them. You talked about making Dallas one-dimensional. I mean, pretty impressive stuff to take away the run early, force them into obvious passing situations, get them into those third and longs, and then get after the quarterback. Again, with Nick Bosa out for the second half in this one, they were able to match their 5 sack total from the week prior, right? 5 more this week, 14 quarterback hits, 22 pressures against Dallas. That was a season high, according to NFL Next Gen stats. That was good for a pressure rate of just under 46%. So nearly half of Dak's dropbacks he was dealing with pressure in his face from the 49ers. And it wasn't Bosa, right? I mean, he's out the second half. It was role players stepping up. Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis, Samson Ebukam, everybody stepping up to fill those needed roles by the 49ers.
Right, and the interior is where you were going to attack them. That's why you saw DJ Jones and Eric Armstead having such good games. But that wasn't the 49ers. That's not the root of how the 49ers were getting pressures. They whipped up on Tyron Smith really bad as well, too. I believe the stat that Jordan threw out there was Tyron Smith had about like 5 to 7 pressures or something like that all season. And he gave up that amount, I think, in this entire game. And that was just a rotation of fresh legs. And that's a Hall of Famer. That's not some regular guy, man. Like, I understand there's matchups that you can exploit, and if you continuously spam that, I get that. But that's not doing that with Tyron Smith, man. Like, Tyron Smith is a baller, and the 49ers took it to him.
Yes, they did. George, you coming in with a quick question here that will address any validity to Jimmy spraining his shoulder. George, I say yes. I mean, I am never one to question the medical reports as they come out. I think there is a vested interest from the player, from the team, from the medical staff, from the agents. Like, everybody really wants there to be some proximity to the truth. Is there some gamesmanship involved as well? Yes, no doubt. Once there is an injury, it is spun in whatever way is most advantageous for either the player or the team or the matchup, whatever it may be. But I'm not questioning the validity of Jimmy spraining that shoulder. I will be interested to go back and literally find the play that it happened on and watch it a couple of times. But, I mean, I saw a couple of instances where Jimmy got thrown down pretty violently in this one.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hurt. It's just weird that these always come out after somewhat poor performances, right? Like,
No
it
doubt.
happened right in Tennessee. All of a sudden, the thumb hurts. And then after this game, now all of a sudden he sprained his shoulder. So there's always this excuse of, well, he was hurt. That's why he was throwing the ball away sometimes. But it is what it is. I'm sure that the thing is there. It's just the timing is so strange. I don't care what anybody says. That's not being a conspiracy theorist. Every time that it seems like he doesn't have a good game, there's something. Oh, the calf is acting up. Oh, man, the shoulder hurt. Oh, he hurt his thumb. Like, this is why largely the 49ers moved up to get Trey Lance. It was less about play and more about this stuff right here, about the injuries and about not being available all the time. And now he's going to have to gut through it. But that's what I want people to know is, like, the whole idea that they're moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo because he's like some bad quarterback. No, it's because he's rarely available to you for full seasons. And he's only done that 1 time, 2 times in his time as a 49er.
Well said. Flav coming in. What would need to happen next year for you to say getting rid of Jimmy for Trey was a mistake? These fans saying Trey should be playing now better be held accountable if no playoffs with Trey next year. I mean, for me, the only way I see Jimmy staying is if the 49ers win the Super Bowl. And even then, I'm not 100% convinced that they wouldn't, just trade Jimmy for a larger boon after having done that, getting back some draft picks. But I do think that teams and fans and front offices will be watching around the league to see whether the Niners did pull the ripcord a little too early, because depending on the situation, Jimmy Garoppolo could go somewhere where he's allowed to flourish. He might go to a team that has a chance to make it to the playoffs. And if you have a storyline where Jimmy and his new team make it to the playoffs and the 49ers and reasonably a similar approximation of their roster, but now with Trey Lance instead of Jimmy, miss the playoffs, there will be a ton of scrutiny on that. And there will be a lot of opinions. I wouldn't say it's a mistake unless you look at it 5 years from now and you have the 49ers with, 0 Lombardis and Jimmy Garoppolo with 1 or more.
Right. And I would think that the only real way that the conversation becomes Jimmy Garoppolo has to stay is if he goes balls to the wall these next 3 games. And what I mean by that is not be the quarterback of the team, but be the reason they beat the Packers in frigid weather. Like 250, 275, 3 touchdowns and a game-winning drive. And then you go and you face, like, let's just say Brady. And you go into Tampa Bay and you go in there and you gunsling against Brady and you take him out. And then whoever you're facing in the Super Bowl, whether it's the Chiefs, the Bills, whoever it is, you absolutely dominate and you become the Super Bowl MVP. That's the only way I see the 49ers saying, hold up, we got to pump the brakes here. I don't foresee that happening. It is in the range of outcomes, but it's just not likely. The only problem I have with this statement is that Next year, Trey Lance will be at his first year starting.
Right.
And evaluating him based on team results, I don't feel is the proper way immediately, right? And I think that's why I'm glad that you brought up like year 3, year 4 down the line, right? Because what if the 49ers go 9-8 next year, right? Lose a few tough games, and there's some games where Trey struggles, but at the end of the season, you are so happy with his progress that you're like, yo, we're ready to go for next year because look at what he just like. Everything should be all in its proper context, right?
Yes.
So when Kyle Shanahan says, I'm running it with Jimmy, well, you damn well better make the playoffs with Jimmy Garoppolo. Otherwise, you could have not made the playoffs with Trey Lance just as easily. So like it's, and then when you flip it and you put Trey Lance in there the next year, the idea shouldn't be, well, they got to get right back in the playoffs and they have to have a deep run. That's not fair. Again, the kid still has to play, and that's the thing.
And look at just how close this season was to the opposite storyline, right? Here we are celebrating a freaking playoff win against the Dallas Cowboys. Had one ball bounced differently in week 18, we would be crying about how this was a wasted season, about how it was a nightmare. And so the storylines in the NFL change on a dime. And I do think it's unfair to make sweeping assumptions about a quarterback on their first year starting in a team sport. I agree. I think that you have to wait and see how it plays out over the long run. Jonathan coming in. It was glorious to see the Cowgirl fans crying. We are going to snatch Packer chains and souls. Debo is coming. Let's go, faithful. The Empire is here. Well, I will be one of those fans in the stands against the Packers. My wife had gotten this old 90s parka. I want to say late 90s by the look of it, because when I think early 90s, I think that bright red crimson starter parka that was all red with the San Francisco emblem on the back. But this one is the multicolored late 90s. I mean, perfect. And it's just way too big. It was like 7 sizes too big for her. It's like 3 sizes too big for me. So it will fit perfectly on top of all of my winter gear. I cannot wait to rock it and make some noise in the stands at Green Bay.
You're a brave man. I would love to go there because I hear that those fans are very inviting. Like they'll allow you to park in front of their house and the entire town shuts down. That's why that entire town is the one who they own the Packers. But you can apparently park in front of someone's house. They actually give you food and beer, you know, like, and it's just, it's so, as a New Yorker, as an East Coaster, right? That sort of, not compassion, I guess, you know, just being nice. It's so
that neighborly.
Right. We would be, I would get there and be like, what the heck's wrong with you people? Like, why are you so nice? Like, why are you saying hi? Why are you smiling so much? So, you know, we're jaded up here, but that's just how they roll over there. So I know you're going to have a blast over there. I'm sure this isn't your first time going, but I'm jealous, but also not jealous because I hate being in the cold, and that's, you know, me being up here as well too.
Yeah. Don't be too jealous of that aspect. This is actually my first time at Lambeau. This will be me putting the pin in the Lambeau spot on this map behind me, and that's why, to me, regardless of outcome on this one, I'm just appreciating it. I'm going in with gratitude for the simple fact that I'm able to make this trip, that I'm able to experience this regardless of outcome, and this being a special season. I agree. In New York, it'd be like, hey, get off my lawn here. Like, what do you mean you're going to try and park in front of my freaking house? Get out of here.
You want one of my beers? Get out of here.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Yeah. Thomas De La Cruz coming in. Game should have been over way earlier than it was. I agree with that. The 49ers did not capitalize on many opportunities that they had to put this one away. And I think that's a reflection of who they have been this year in 2021. We will get to that in a little bit in a topic that goes over just that fact, that in 2021, it has been up, it has been down, it has been sideways, and that's the 49ers' identity.
Yep. And again, take into account how hard it is to win playoff games, taking into account, you know, all of the things that Dallas put them in position to do, but also take into account that you're not going to be able to duplicate that sort of performance offensively and expect to come out with a win next week. And I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit more.
Very, very true. Let's get into that next topic, which is a continuation of that amazing defensive effort and the required DJ Jones appreciation segment that is forcing me to get that DJ Jones barbecue sauce up on the screen there. You know I have to take any moment to celebrate the big man. DJ Jones rated as ESPN's #1 run-stopping defensive tackle this season. I mean, it really was a miraculous effort by the 49ers. I mean, to match up with him, since they moved Kinlaw off to IR, they brought Armstead in. It has been DJ Jones #1 as the run-stopping defensive tackle, and Eric Armstead, just #3 on ESPN as well. With Dallas, held them to just 60 yards rushing before that last 17-yard scramble by Dak on the final drive to make the final total in rushing yards allowed 77 yards. And I think it was that ability to make Dallas one-dimensional, and DJ Jones and Eric Armstead deserved the lion's share of the credit there. Making Dallas one-dimensional forced them into that scenario where the Niners were able to get after them the way we just described moments ago.
Yeah, and that was point. And you don't want to on Martin, so you go at the center. But DJ Jones has been incredible. He shot up the must-sign list for this team and must return. And he definitely has softened the blow of what happened with Javon Kinlaw this season, because he's really come into his own. And I think that what people expect from Kinlaw is what you're watching from DJ Jones. So I know you don't want to hear that, because one guy is an unproven pick, and he has a lot of work to do to get back there. But at the same time, it's very nice to see where he could fit in there and the growth of DJ Jones. And it makes him an invaluable portion of this defense. And you can't allow him to walk, especially with the uncertainty going forward with Kinlaw and how much they've developed him, all of those things. It's hard. It would be a tough pill to swallow for him to go somewhere else. This isn't a Kerry Hyder situation in which Kerry Hyder comes over here, Chris Kosurik gets him all in, and then he goes to Seattle and you forgot that he played anymore, like for Seattle. This is a guy who was on an ascension, got injured, and then was able to work his way back and is now rounding into that player that many of us thought he would be. It's just another feather in the 49ers cap in terms of what they'll be able to do from that position because of the uncertainty with Javon Kinlaw's injury.
Yeah, you have to do what you can to try and bring DJ Jones back. He is just that important. And while you hope that Javon Kinlaw ends up being who you thought he would be when you took him initially, to this point, he has not been as dominant as a player like DJ Jones. DJ Jones is what you were hoping for in that regard. And in years past, it just has been the inability to stay on the field late into the season that's impacted his ability to be a top edge defensive tackle. And this season, he's showing what he can do when healthy late in the season, just continue his run of dominance. I think he's earned himself a considerable payday, and I hope that the 49ers absolutely prioritize getting him that payday. I want to continue throwing up this barbecue sauce for years to come. That would be my dream. Flav coming in here with the super chat. My problem isn't with getting rid of Jimmy. It's getting rid of Jimmy for an unproven quarterback that we gave up our future to get. We built to win now. If Trey needs 3 years to be good, it was a stupid move. I mean, you could certainly take that argument, right? You could say that you can't do both. You can't try to win now and build for the future. And there were points in this season where I would have said to you, you're right. Like, the 49ers attempted to do that. They fell flat on their face, and they proved that that was a poor strategy. And then it sort of worked out. It got to the point where the 49ers looked like they were resurging, looked like they might, in fact, make a push to get into the playoffs. And then they did. And now they're in the playoffs, and they've won a game. They beat the Dallas freaking Cowboys. And I get that, it wasn't because of Jimmy Garoppolo that they did that, but it was with this strategy of having both quarterbacks. And this was, I believe, what they envisioned, the ability to be relevant this year while also preparing themselves for the future to insulate against what you mentioned, Jason, which is Jimmy Garoppolo's both inconsistent play, but more importantly, his inability to stay on the field. And they seem to have done that rather successfully.
Yeah, and here's the thing, too, is we don't know what this team is built to win today.
Yeah.
we don't know what this team is going to look like next year, especially with 30 plus free agents and who's going to be coming back and who's going to be in, out, those sort of things as well, too. So you have to take all of that into account. It's not like the 49ers are going to run it back with this entire roster. There's plenty of people that are starters on this defense that are probably not going to be here next year. And what I mean by that, Tart's probably out. Jason Verrett might walk. And I know, and they have their newer position people in place, but on offense, there's guys that are ready. You got to extend Lincoln Tomlinson. You got to bring a lot of guys back. Who knows how all of this stuff works out? So you're built to win right now. You can't really make an assumption that this team will be built to win until you see what the roster is going to look like next year. The culture right now is telling you that it's time to win now because this will be 2 or 3 years in the postseason. But the roster next year will tell you exactly what the 49ers expectations should be. Sure, foundational pieces will be here. Bosa, Samuel, get it. All of those guys are going to be here. We get it. But do you know that this team is going to be built to win next year based on who could be leaving, who they do bring in, how that all works out? So there's a lot of stuff that's still unclear. But the only thing that's really clear, I think, is that Lance is going to be given the keys. But, I mean, to say that they'd be built to win next year, we don't necessarily just know that just yet, even though I suspect they will be.
I would agree, and I think that's a fair statement. You do have those core pieces locked down, but with only 31 players under contract, this roster is primed to look a lot different around the edges. And in the NFL, let's be frank about it, the players around the edges absolutely can make or break your season. So we do have to wait and see, but it gives us optimism for both playing this year and being relevant beyond. I do think in 5 years, you'll be able to look back and critically examine these decisions and be able to definitively say where the 49ers were geniuses and where they made mistakes. Last Second Sports coming in just to say 2 of my favorites. Show them love and subscribe to both. Yes, neglected to mention it earlier, but all of Jason's links are down in the description. Go follow him on Twitter. I mentioned that he's the co-host of the Sprint Right Option podcast. There's going to be a episode of Sprint Right Option happening tonight, if I am correct. Beginning in less than an hour, we have to get this thing going so that he can get over there and do that podcast. But yes, go follow below, subscribe to both. And Jesse, you do good work as well there, my friend. Please visit Last Second Sports as well.
Shout out to Jesse Cohn.
Yeah. Yes. Nicely played, sir. Flav coming in. Also, if it takes Trey 3 years to be good, why are we even debating whether he should be starting now? He needs to be good immediately to warrant all the Jimmy negativity this whole year, in my opinion. I think for me, this was a story of the grass being greener on the other side. It was much less about Trey Lance and his actual abilities and much more about Jimmy Garoppolo and fans' frustrations with his inconsistencies, which again are just a part of his game, and wanting something else, believing that, well, I don't know what that is over there, but it's got to be better than this because this is driving me absolutely crazy. And I think that to me, what Coach Shanahan showed in his patience in sticking with Jimmy Garoppolo was his reasoning that he knows the quantity, he knows what he has in Jimmy Garoppolo, he knows his strengths, he knows his weaknesses, and he just doesn't have quite the feel for Trey Lance yet. But when I see the improvement from the first game to the second game for Trey Lance, I feel pretty comfortable about moving forward with him next season, even though it's still a bit of an unknown.
Right, and to be fair, Flav, the negativity around Jimmy is from the fans. It's not from the reporters and it's not from the team. The team has continued to back Jimmy Garoppolo. The locker room has continued to back Jimmy Garoppolo. So no matter what fans say, there's no negativity around him in the building. And that's all that really matters because fans are going to be fans. Remember, fans didn't want to give Steve Young a chance, and then they were ready to kick him out as well, too. Like, I'm old enough to remember all those things as well, too. So it's fans. It's just fans that are talking. So when you say he needs to be good immediately to warrant all the Jimmy negativity, I don't feel like that's fair because all of the negativity around it is from fans. It's not any negativity around it from Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, or anybody in that building, and they're committed to their process. We don't have to like the process, but as long as the process works, and it seems like it's working this year with the 49ers in the playoffs playing in the divisional round, nobody should care about what fans have to say at this point because we just are stating opinions. The locker room, the coach, the regime has told you how they feel about Jimmy Garoppolo, and they've acted accordingly. They never played hopscotch or flip flop at all on this. So I mean,
No.
it's really just the fans that were negative around him.
It is the fans, and I will take my own mea culpa in this one. There was a time in the early 90s where we saw both Steve Young and Steve Bono come in for an injured Joe Montana, and I will freely admit that there was a point in time at my 13-year-old self where I wanted Steve Bono over Steve Young. And let's just say history was not kind to that take. And I don't know why I'm admitting it here, but it's just to show that we're all fallible, in particular when we're 13 years old. Horatio coming in with the super chat just to say thank you. That is appreciated. Absolutely. And Jonathan coming in. I've been arguing for the last 2 months that Debo is the best player in the NFL and should be MVP. I get Rodgers, but Debo affects the game in so many ways. I'm going to use this as a chance to put this out. It was a stat that I saw from Mike Renner on Twitter that's just a fun fantasy stat to play out there to show you just how dominant Debo Samuel's statistical season has been to this point. He tweeted out, if you take Debo Samuel's rushing efficiency and pencil it out over Jonathan Taylor's workload, the numbers you get out rushing are 2,102 rushing yards, 43 rushing touchdowns, and 111 broken tackles. I mean, obviously, that is not fair to do, right? It would be a completely different game if you gave Debo Samuel that number of carries. I have no idea if his body could hold up, but that is a reflection of just how amazing his efficiency has been and the added bonus for the 49ers of being able to rely on that efficiency in their own running game.
Yeah, and this is look. If I get one first place vote for Debo Samuel, I'm happy. That's enough, right, for me, because this is a quarterback award. It just always has been. That's why this usually goes to Offensive Player of the Year. But I agree with you, Jonathan. I mean, when you look at if you took Debo Samuel away from this team, they're not here. They're not in the playoffs. He saved the season many times. He's saving the season to this day. He saved the season in Chicago. Where were you when Debo Samuel saved the season in Chicago? Where were you when he saves it week after week doing what he's been doing? So, I mean, there is an argument to be made that he's more valuable. The only thing is it's just a quarterback award, and those guys touch the ball every single play. And Aaron Rodgers is having an incredible year. I don't want to hear about all the other stuff. We're just talking about football. He is just having an incredible year throwing the football, man. And, yeah, it's always just going to be a quarterback award. But I agree with you, man. Just give him one vote. Just make sure you give him one vote, like one first-place vote, just so you guys can recognize, like, how important this man is to this team, because they would not be here without him.
That is a fact, and I agree with BK from the Bay. Pay that man his money.
Yes.
He has earned it. Flav coming in one more time. Appreciated, Flav. Thanks, fellas. Respect your opinions. Love all my fellow Niner fans as well. Even the Lance lovers hope they are right about him. I don't see it yet. Hey, that's fair. I think you've got to wait until the sample size is a little bit bigger before you can be truly convicted about his skill set transferring to the NFL and specifically to the 49ers offense. And you have to wait until Kyle Shanahan gets a little more comfortable in calling the plays for him as well. All right, we will use that to transition into our next topic of the 49ers being who we thought they were. It just struck me in this one that everything that was the 2021 season came out in this little game. This game, again, was a microcosm of the entire season, and the 49ers have had many of those. Jimmy G was inconsistent. Jimmy Ward couldn't make a pick when needed. Special teams was a hot mess. Debo was unstoppable. By the way, that was not a shot at Jimmy Ward, who I am a big fan of, but it's just one of those storylines that continues to get revisited, right? That we generalize about this team. We see trends that we shout from the rooftops, and they have been true throughout this season, and it seemed that we saw all of them come to fruition on Sunday against the Cowboys.
Yeah, and this is the 49ers experience. And if you've been a lifelong 49er fan, aside from the 2019 playoffs where you largely rolled on people, and in 2019 largely rolled on many teams, when does this team ever make it easy?
Right.
So we are absolutely who we thought we were. Another thing that we thought we were, or we know about what the 49ers are, it's about what Dallas thought they were. Hi, Micah Parsons. The bullies get bullied. You said it. You knew in your heart that that didn't matter. You said it. Just like the guy who tries to act crazy and hopes that that will scare off the opponent and just say, oh, man, this guy's crazy. I don't want any parts. Those guys deep down know that they're not built like that. And you had to know your defense was not built to be pushed around like that. I watched you get washed out many times on that first drive. George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. Don't say things like bullies get bullied. Go out there and go ahead and play. Because for me, that's false bravado because you've watched your own defense. Confidence is one thing, but you have to know in your heart of hearts that you're not built to play that sort of football, and it was shown right away. Your cornerbacks can't tackle. You were largely taken out of the game, but you had your plays as well. But that whole bullies get bullied, like, dude, you're closer to the Rams in terms of softness, and it just kind of got cut out really quickly. Like, early on in that game, you were getting bullied, and that's the 49ers. That's who we know they are. You thought you were built like that. You thought you were built like that.
Yeah, when I go back and rewatch that first half, it screams to me that the 49ers, when they get out of their own way, when they don't make the mistakes, they steamroll people. When they are cooking, the Niners are a freaking 3-star Michelin restaurant. They are smoking people. I mean, it was unreal the way in which they got rolling against Dallas, both on defense with their playing with their hair on fire, and on offense scoring points on every single drive. Now, I realize that in the playoffs, you want to make touchdowns instead of field goals. Eventually, that can come back to bite you. But when you score points on every single drive, that can overcome the inability to put it in the end zone, as it did on Sunday. When you see the boneheaded mistakes, you then see the other side of this team. So it's weird, this dichotomy that you have a team when rolling can beat anybody in the league and can also shoot themselves in the foot and be the reason they lose to anybody in the league. And that has been the 2021 49er experience in a bottle. Sean951, done with Dallas. We beat they ass. SF offense, number 7, better than Green Bay offense, number 10. SF defense, number 3, better than Green Bay, number 7. This game will come down to turnovers. Gold for the win. I think that could be the case. Turnovers are a huge factor in the NFL, certainly in the playoffs, as margins for victory shrink. And you would anticipate in the cold the advantages for the 49ers of packing their defense and packing their run game and traveling well with those two factors. If they can avoid those turnovers, I truly believe this sets up for the 49ers to win this one.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard for anybody to win games when you turn the ball over and you're not getting turnovers. But this particular statement, it goes back to the quarterback. How many oh, no, Jimmy throws are you going to get in this game? And how many of those turn into interceptions? Those same bad plays against Dallas, Aaron Rodgers is going to make you pay for that. He's going to make you pay for that. So when you say it comes down to turnovers, it comes down to the quarterback not turning the ball over more than anything. Unless guys are fumbling the ball, which is something that we haven't really seen too much of, that can obviously happen in any game. But it really boils down to what's the Jimmy Garoppolo we're going to get. This week sets up for everybody to be, I don't know if they want Jimmy throwing the ball, for him to just come out and just be nails, throwing the ball everywhere, right? In this game. Like this is the up and down portion of it, right? If he was the way that he was in this past game, which let's just, he was not good down the stretch, clearly.
No.
Whatever. Might be the shoulder, whatever. Just wasn't good. But this is like, as soon as everybody starts to write this man off, or when they're just like, this is it, right? Like they're going to go into this game and he's going to throw the ball 8 times. This is such a spot for Jimmy Garoppolo to just say, you know what? Balls to the wall, touchdown, or like great throw, dime, and throw way more times than people think. But it's all going to boil down to, Jimmy, can you not turn the ball over? Because that interception swings the game the other way for Dallas. Thank goodness that Dallas is inept in almost all facets of the game in this game. Otherwise, that turns around, and now you are in a spot where you've got to go back and score points rather than protect the lead. And that's the sort of thing you cannot do against Green Bay.
Yes, that is a fact. We got the super chats pouring in, but this topic just leads too perfectly into the Just Jimmy situation. Jonathan, Bullpup, we will be on those super chats in just 1 second. But you talked about it. It is the ups and downs of Jimmy Garoppolo as far as the turnover margin for the 49ers. This to me is just who Jimmy Garoppolo is. We like to say good Jimmy, bad Jimmy, and those terms have meaning, right? That they're useful in this discussion. But in reality, we've got to stop with it. We've got to stop with good Jimmy and bad Jimmy because it's all him. This is his game. The ups and downs of good and bad all formulate into the total package that is Jimmy Garoppolo. Pulling out a Josh Dubow stat from Twitter, he pointed out that Jimmy Garoppolo in the fourth quarter of his 4 playoff starts for the 49ers, 9 for 20, 93 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks, 19.4 quarterback rating. It's the lowest fourth quarter playoff quarterback rating in the last 30 years with 2 starts minimum. But that is with the 49ers winning the vast majority of those games. So it is him performing well enough in the first 3 quarters to overcome, for the most part, that atrocious stat line from the fourth quarter. And let's point out that this game yesterday, as called out by Jackhammer on Twitter, Jimmy had the second best QBR by the 10 quarterbacks who have played so far on this wild card weekend. And don't overlook things like Richard Sherman's tweet about how people in the locker room appreciate Jimmy for the teammate that he is. It is all of these things, horrible, wonderful, and everything in between, that are James Garoppolo.
Objectively, Jimmy Garoppolo playing quarterback is a roller coaster. That's not my opinion. You watch the man play football for one. It should have never come to a point where now you are coming to this realization. The point is that during these roller coasters, the 49ers, for a large portion, they win their games. They do when he starts. But that doesn't mean that it's smooth sailing. There's games where it's smooth sailing, but there's large patches of inconsistency, whether it be during a game, a few stretches of weeks, things like that. This is Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not a diss. It is a description. And it's not an opinion. It is objective. This is Jimmy Garoppolo. And when you point out and you talk to people who are, quote unquote, Jimmy stans, they will tell you dead to your face these 3 words. Jimmy is fine. Jimmy is fine. So why is it that there's this huge, large disagreement between what people believe Jimmy Garoppolo is, when one side says Jimmy is fine and the other side says Jimmy is fine? But yet fine is a diss for some people, and fine is too much praise for the man. There's the people who hold Jimmy Garoppolo up with certain stats in this top 5, top 10 stature. That's wrong. There's people who have Jimmy Garoppolo in this 18 to 25 range quarterback. That's wrong. There's a middle ground here with Jimmy Garoppolo, and all of that gets filled in with the inconsistencies during the week, how you've seen it. It's not a 1 or 2 week sample size. This is who the man is. He is not going to change. He's about to be 30. But the point is, Jimmy Stan, I hate that word or whatever. Jimmy Garoppolo supporter, Jimmy Garoppolo detractor. Jimmy is fine. Jimmy is fine. Rah, 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 rah. Why are you arguing? You've come to the same conclusion. I'll never understand it.
It's weird. They're both out here. All they need to do is move 10 feet closer together and they're at the truth. It's just this strange phenomenon of needing to argue about Jimmy Garoppolo and pick one side or the other. And again, it is hard to quantify some of the things that make him a good teammate and a good leader. I can point to leaders within my life that I worked harder for, that made me a better person. I couldn't quantify any of those things. That speaks to Richard Sherman's tweet about Jimmy Garoppolo. All right, moving on here with a super chat. Jonathan coming in. I don't like calling for people's jobs, but Hightower has to go. Special teams have cost us games this year. Need to cut Norman right now. I'm gonna do this combination because the next topic was the low bar for Hightower. And so these two come together. And Jonathan, I'm with you. I don't like to call for people's jobs either, but I feel like we came into this game and we don't expect much from Hightower. It is not a high bar that we're setting for him. Just don't lose the game. And we almost lost the game because of key critical special teams gaffes. Running into the kicker on 4th and 15 Why do you need to be aggressive there? Why is that the play call? That is literally the only thing you could do there to bail Dallas out. I get wanting to block the punt. I get wanting to put your foot on their throats. But the risk involved with it was just, it didn't seem to match the potential reward. And then the fake punt, where everyone, including Tony Romo, including me, who's yelling at my TV screen, watch for the fake punt before the fake punt. And seemingly Josh Norman, it just turns around the wrong direction. Did not seem to have his head in the game. But again, you do have to have some balance here, because Robbie Gould comes in the clutch, and apparently the man has never missed in the frickin' postseason. He just drills 50-yarders. And so again, it's sort of this nuanced question of where does the blame lie, and just how atrocious were those costly mistakes?
Yeah, the 49er fans don't need to go down the road of special teams gaffes costing them playoff games, because then we're just all gonna be sad, right?
Yep.
And at least in that instance, that wasn't something that was a reoccurring theme. You know, that was because Ted Ginn wasn't there. I'm not going to say the person's name, right? Like, Ted Ginn has been all world. Yeah, we're fine. We're good. We got it. Trust me. Living on the East Coast, that was not easy to go through. That was not easy to go through, man.
Nope.
And then to watch what they did the next week, it was gut wrenching.
Knowing we could have done that. We could have done that.
Absolutely. I'll make the case that all 3 years that the 49ers were in the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl, they should have won all 3 of those Super Bowls. But hey,
Agreed.
I don't want to be sad. But it's funny. Now punters are cooking Josh Norman. It's like they're like, oh, wait, Josh Norman's out there? Let's throw it at him real quick. But here's the problem more than anything. And this is the part that I've been upset about with this whole Josh Norman thing, right? Guy misses a block, banished to the shadow realm. Guy fumbles one time, never gets to play again. Josh Norman, they're running zone, plays it like it's man, touchdown over his head, gets to run right back out there. Josh Norman on a quick give off between him and Jaquiski Tartt in the Colts game. Mo Alley-Cox is wide open for a touchdown because Josh Norman's running right to the line. Like, there were so many glaring errors in terms of your responsibilities. Listen, talent's one thing, right? Being in the right spot at the right time, and sometimes somebody's better than you, is one thing. But completely ignoring your assignments and not being good, and you're not punching the football out now, why are you here? Why are you here? At this point, you're here now just because you need able bodies just in case something, God forbid, happens to one of these cornerbacks and you have to just go out there and play. But this has been my problem with Josh Norman the entire time. Kyle Shanahan has allowed certain guys to get away with certain things and never check that, ever. But Brandon Ayuk has to run harder in practice. And certain guys miss a block and they're out of the game and they're never seen from again. You fumble a ball, you end up like Matt Breida, you're not playing anymore. It's just very strange who he wants to yell at, puff his chest out when there's a guy who is blatantly disregarding his assignments and what goes on week to week in game plans that is not costing you right away. But when you watch film like the Rams game, Cooper Kupp, it's a give off. K'Wan Williams is telling him that we're switching off. This guy just runs to the middle of the field, and he's like, I didn't hear you. I don't care. Cooper Kupp, wide open, 30-yard catch. Obviously, it didn't matter because the 49ers were up, but that's the sort of thing that is on film every single week with Josh Norman. So when you guys do your film, sessions in I'm just a guy in front of some Batman stuff. What do I know? But you guys should be looking at that like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you not in your spot? We talked about this all week. Look at him communicating with you. So Josh Norman gets to just do whatever he wants. And it finally came to a head where, finally he got benched at this point, and it makes sense with Mosley coming back and with the ascension of Ambry Thomas. But Josh Norman has been frustrating for many reasons because Kyle's not kept that same energy with him as he has other players. I don't want to hear, oh, this is a rookie that is a first-round pick of mine and I got to work him harder. No, that veteran knows you're not going to say anything to him and he's not going to change anything, and that's not right. Everybody should be held to the same standards. Kyle's definitely playing favorites.
I have to agree with that to some extent. And I do think, thankfully, he came in and was instrumental in pulling him from the starting lineup. But again, you're seeing it over and over again. I'll close on this with Richard Hightower in believing that it is a lack of situational awareness for the players that are out there on special teams. And I do think it'll be interesting to know whether Kyle Shanahan has any type of a come to Jesus conversation with Richard Hightower this week, or whether he flexes any of the available position coaches to assist on game day. Because quite honestly, it's the type of thing where you would have expected him to pull aside Josh Norman in that instance and give him, where you're looking in his eyes and you get the comprehension of just how likely it is for them to throw the pass on this fake punt. And again, I think that's missing. And the same thing in choosing to be aggressive on the punt block. It just seems like something where we're not situationally aware there. And in the playoffs, that can cost you. Bullpup 33 coming in. Baldy said it best. It was Shark Week all over again. I mean, the role players by this 49ers defense stepping up in the absence of Nick Bosa. I was just so thrilled to see that. Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis, you had Samson Ebukam, just everybody stepping up. That was so phenomenal to see, Jason.
Yeah, and that was the one thing that we said about this defensive line, that they were not going to be able to duplicate what happened in 2019 because obviously DeForest Buckner and Dee Ford was there at a high level and all those things. But we certainly felt that this defensive line would be deeper than it was in 2019. And I think that is really coming to fruition now. If I would have told you that Nick Bosa was going to miss a large portion of this game, you would have said, oh no, things really went wrong in this game. But they didn't miss a beat at all. And that is, again, goes to Chris Kosuric, goes to this defensive line, goes to D'Amico Ryans, and he dialed up some pressures. Like he, on that fourth down, he sent the house at Dak Prescott, and it forced him into a bad throw on fourth down, and they turned the ball over. So again, fresh legs. This defense. Unfortunately, Jordan Willis, it looks like he's not playing this week, but that could open the door for Maurice Hurst, who should have fresh legs as well too. So there's always a door, and that's the idea of having this deep line is fresh legs at the end of games. Talent is one thing, but being able to put pressure on guys and being able to keep up that pressure all game is the way the 49ers intend to win. It just clicked a little bit later in the season than we believed it would have with Arden Key coming on, with them bringing in a Menahue. But that just speaks to how deep this defensive line is, and it's still going to be the strength of this team and the backbone of it, because now with the secondary playing as well as it is, and now you got Azeez Al-Shaair. It looks like Fred Warner will be back. Dre Greenlaw can step in here and there, even though he wasn't starting. It was Azeez and Fred and Kwan, right? But these are all good problems to have, man. And it was Shark Week.
Phenomenal problems to have. We're going to roll through these super chats that we got. We got one last topic about Green Bay, and we got to get Jason out of here so that he can do his own podcast. Chris Royal coming in. Like I said yesterday, if we can play a complete game, we should be unstoppable. Love your content, Jason and Rob. Appreciate you all. We appreciate you, Chris. As one of the sneakerheads of this channel, I want to say thank you. And yes, I agree. What you see in that first half, anyone watching this, go back and watch the first half of the game against Dallas and tell me that Niner team couldn't beat anyone remaining in the playoffs.
That's why they're the team that nobody wants to face. That's why Michael Irvin, who tried to put on a brave face all week, he knew it, and he was telling everybody. I mean, that's it. That's why nobody wants to play this team, because they can only stop themselves, it seems like, at this point.
Yes, I love Michael Irvin, and he was so truthful about that, and I love his description of the playoffs as the tight, because everyone's cheeks get a little tight in the playoffs. Cap speaking, coming in with the super chat. Can I get a moment of silence for Trevon Diggs? That is cold-hearted, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, that is cold-blooded. But Brandon Ayuk, man, running routes. And that's the thing. We knew that about Diggs, though. Diggs, give it and take it. He gives up the most amount of yards. He's just he's a risk taker. And you know what? He turns the ball over. So you'll take that for that. And he didn't necessarily get – I mean, if one throw gets hit to Ayuk, then we're really talking about him getting cooked, because Ayuk sent that man to another zip code, with his move. But obviously the throw didn't get hit. And we don't want to harp on the negative, but that really would have went a long way into sealing this game a lot earlier. Yes,
it would have. Jonathan R., you're right about the ups and downs of Jimmy. It's what makes him, what else makes him, it's what makes him him. You know what else makes him him? He wins. When we don't got him, we lose, period. Again, I think there are some intangibles that you cannot point to about Jimmy Garoppolo, but they do factor into what type of a leader he is and how respected he is in the locker room.
Yeah, they love him, and they're going to go to war for him. And yeah, I mean, it's just Jimmy Garoppolo has this way of all of a sudden, maybe he's played like 5 straight series where it doesn't look good. And then when you got to have that one out of nowhere, like he did against Green Bay, he almost did against Seattle, he did it in Tennessee, and then they lost on the field goal. The Rams, clearly, like that's the thing. It's ups and downs of Jimmy Garoppolo, but it is true. The record is better. But I will say this, one quick caveat.
Yes.
The quarterbacks that they're comparing him to are below replacement level average quarterbacks. So I would hope that Jimmy Garoppolo can win more games than CJ Beathard and
you
and
would
Nick
hope.
Mullins. Yeah.
You would hope.
Yeah.
Joseph 559 coming in. Give Debo 20 carries a game, only 2 more, and then the bye. So, I mean, I am all for getting Debo as many carries as we need to win at this point, because it's win or go home, right? If you're down to overuse of Debo or losing a playoff game, then overuse Debo, right? I'm sure he would say the same thing on the sideline.
Yeah, if I could quote the Great Waterboy scene with the 2 announcers, is like, last game of the year, can't hold anything back, and the guy just is like, yeah, we know. Like, he keeps saying it over and over, but that's what it should be. Empty the bag, man, and empty the tank.
Yes, empty the tank, because there is nothing after this if you cannot advance. Do everything that you can to get past Green Bay, just like I'm dragging out this sentence to find that last super chat. There it is. Sean 951 Niners coming in. Jimmy G's story. 9 minutes left in the game, 23-10, driving Dallas 175 yards of offense, then the pick. Equals Dallas getting the touchdown and 135 yards and stressful ending. Why, Jimmy? That is a great illustration of just what you get in the Jimmy Garoppolo experience. If there were a roller coaster called the Jimmy Garoppolo experience, half the people getting off of it would be vomiting into trash cans, and the other half would be elated. It would be a very weird dichotomy.
Yeah, it would. But unfortunately, it just is what it is, and got to ride it out now.
That's right. You are ride or die with Jimmy Garoppolo at this point. Let's close this thing out talking about being on to Green Bay, talking a little bit about this matchup. Obviously, a very close loss to the Green Bay Packers way back when 37 seconds were the difference between a win and a loss, a 30-28 losing effort by the 49ers. How do you see this one shaping out going into Lambeau Field, Jason?
I mean, at that point, last time they faced, I was actually in the building. That was my only Levi's game, so I know never to go there again. I'm sorry, guys. I definitely take that all on me. But now these are 2 different teams, and the Packers are healthier. David Bakhtiari is going to play in this game. They've got everybody back. The 49ers are going to be starting their best cornerback duo. Like that time, it was Lenore and Norman. Now it's Thomas, and now it's Mosley, and everybody's going to be back. You hope that Nick Bosa is back, and then they will have Greenlaw and Aziz, and they will be playing their best football in terms of on defense, right? So this game, yes, you can point to and say, hey, they were this close, but they're not the same team either right now. And offensively, Mohamed Sanu's not starting anymore. Jawan Jennings is. And now he's the new Kendrick Bourne, where he catches only passes on 3rd down and gets first downs and only scores on touchdowns in big moments, right? Like, that's exactly what Kendrick Bourne did. That's all he did while he was here. That's where Jawan Jennings is. He's not Jalen Hurd. He's the new Kendrick Bourne. That's right. The role he's filling now. But right now, and Elijah Mitchell didn't play in this game. Trey Sermon played in that game as well, too. So, again, these are 2 different teams right now. They are. And at this point, the 49ers have an offense and a better defense at this point in terms of health-wise, that they're able to still stick to their script, which is what it's going to be every single week for the rest of this time that they're going to be playing football. Run the ball, control the clock, play solid defense, and put them in positions where they've got to beat you, and you've got to put it all on Aaron Rodgers. I know you don't want to do that, but if you make them one-dimensional, then things can happen. So, again, this isn't the same 2 teams that were here. And then when you think about all of those things and how close the 49ers were to winning that last time, it should really, really make any 49er fan optimistic going into this one.
It should. You should have faith going into this one. I believe this was on Jack Hammer's program. If I'm misremembering it, correct me in the comments. But with Elijah Mitchell out in that game, Elijah and Debo combined for 2 carries for 0 yards, right? I mean, it was a completely different team in that respect. Brandon Ayuk was a shell of who he is now. To your point, Mohamed Sanu was playing, not Jawan Jennings, who is making grown-ass man catches left and right, just continually 3rd down conversions or touchdowns. That's all the man does. And this defense has rounded into form. So the 49ers are peaking at the right time, and this sets up to be a very competitive game against the Green Bay Packers, who have some pretty incredible strengths, none greater than the arm of Aaron Rodgers, but also some of the 49ers kryptonite in a very strong interior defensive tackle that the 49ers tend to struggle with. Kenny Clark is a very dominant player and can give the 49ers fits on the inside. Silverado Kev, shout out to Silverado Kev for coming in. Shout out to both my guys, at Rob Schuh and Jason Aponte, two of the best in the business. Let's keep the same recipe this week. Heavy run, including Debo, and protect the ball. Keep Aaron Rodgers on the sidelines. If the 49ers can possess the ball, time of possession, somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 minutes, that will be exactly what they're looking to do. Run the ball consistently, keep Aaron Rodgers on the sideline, make those critical third down completions as they did in the first half against Dallas, put points on the board, score points on every possible drive, including some key contributions from Robbie Gould, and then on defense, try to make the Packers one-dimensional. Attempt to eliminate Aaron Jones and put the ball into Aaron Rodgers' hand exclusively and get after him, because when Aaron Rodgers is consistently hit and disrupted in the backfield, he's a different player, and you can see it show through in his body language as well. I agree with Kev here on the recipe for the 49ers this weekend.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up Kenny Clark, because he did blow up that game in the home opener. But I will say this as well, too. In the same lane that I'm telling you that these two teams are not the same, is that Alex Mack has stepped his game up a ton.
Yes,
man.
he has. Great point.
He's been great. He's been sensational lately, honestly. And I think that, again, you can point to it and say, well, he gave him fits. Yeah, he gave him fits in week 3, but that's not the same guy right now. So, I mean, that could be something that changes. And I'm looking at Alex Mack and saying, man, you've been very, very good lately. And nobody's really been talking about that. I think it kind of flies under the radar because of Trent being back and you know how good Lakin is. And we're all shocked and taken back by Tom Compton turning into the best right tackle in football by some metrics. And that thing, but Alex Mack has been very good. And if he can even stifle Kenny Clark a little bit more than he did in that first game, now we're talking, and you're going to be able to execute your offense a lot better.
That is a fact. That is a fact. All right, Jonathan R. coming in. The cold and us controlling the line of scrimmage will be the reason why we win. They aren't going to want to hit with us. They don't want this smoke. Jonathan, that is the attitude the Niners need to bring with them when they get off the plane in Lambeau. They are on short rest. Their bodies are going to be significantly more battered and bruised than the Packers, who have had their frickin' feet up on the couch, on the whatever the hell they've been doing in this off week. They've been resting, and it ain't right, but we're going to come in and we're going to punch them in the mouth, and we are going to bring that physicality with us, and the Niners are going to show them that they mean business.
Yep. I mean, this is how it's going to be for the rest of the way. And I don't really think there's many teams that want or are going to be as physical. Like, that's still not the Packers' strength at all. Like, that's not how they want to. And again, I think you kind of brought it up. Punch Aaron Rodgers a little bit too, and he kind of just takes his ball and wants to go home as well. So, I mean, it's an ideology that we saw with the Rams. The Cowboys kind of have it as well too. But the 49ers have been able to knock out the Packers fairly early in games. And there's times where Rodgers looks disinterested. So you got to hope that that's something that'll continue.
Yes, hoping that his playoff struggles against San Francisco continue. Got to celebrate Jan coming in. Jan Solo, the newest sneakerhead on the channel. I appreciate it. Love the support of the channel. If you enjoy the content, please do like the video before you leave. If you haven't already, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and consider joining the sneakerhead community to support the channel as well. As I said earlier, Jason's information is down below as well. He is going to start his podcast momentarily for tonight. Go over there, hit that link, go over and follow he and Andrew. It's going to be phenomenal content as well. Let's wrap up on this point here, Jason, that I think the 49ers have no fear closing this out. The 49ers are not afraid of any team remaining in the playoffs. Certainly not afraid of Green Bay going into Lambeau. They are a battle-tested team that has come through in some of these very high-pressure moments, and it has forged a diamond encasing on the 49ers. I believe they are going to be able to go in and present a physical matchup and really give Green Bay everything they can handle.
And again, we talked about battle tested and winning games in multiple ways. Okay, your offense needs to do it one game, cool. You need the defense to do it one game, cool. You winning ugly by, kicking field goals, fine. You turning the ball over or and you're not getting turnovers and you win that game, fine. They have won games in every single way. And that sort of confidence is instilled by them and saying, listen, when things go to hell, we keep it together and we find a way to win games. That is the sign of a battle tested and tightly knit group that believes in each other and are going to be playing for each other. So yeah, they have no fear because they know for a fact what we know is that when they execute their game plan and they don't shoot themselves in the foot, then they're very hard to beat. And there's not many teams in this league that can beat them.
Amen to that. Closing on this, Barris with the super chat. If we limit Jones and Dillon like we did Zeke and Pollard, we win. I think that's a fair statement. Make them one-dimensional. Jason, as always, an absolute pleasure having you on here. That podcast is going to be starting momentarily. Let's get you out. Thank you so much for joining me, and we look forward to doing it again. We did all we could because we had you on last week, and that led to our first postseason victory. Let's just hope that that is the same outcome in this one, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got to say that I'm a little disappointed that you have like a sneakerhead portion on here and I haven't been invited for that because I have spent way too much money on sneakers, man. And that is like my downfall. Like you might think it's pop figures, but those pale in comparison to the amount of money that I've spent on all types of sneakers.
Well, that's the irony here is that it's a play on words for the members of the community. But quite honestly, I have a lot more nice dress shoes than I do sneakers. Now that we've started the sneakerhead community, I am on the lookout for Niners sneakers themed colors because I do want to improve that area of my game. You and I are going to connect offline because I'm going to need you to educate me on being a better sneakerhead, Jason.
Honestly, the best advice I can give to any sneakerhead: wear the hell what you want to wear, and don't ever get caught up in hype. No, doesn't matter about labels, doesn't matter about price. Whatever it is that you like, if you're rocking it and you're confident, then that's a sign of a sneakerhead. Also, wear your damn sneakers, and I'm telling that to myself, you bozo. There's a whole bunch of sneakers over there that you never get a chance to wear, and it's like, what'd you spend this money for? But my best advice for any sneakerhead: doesn't matter the brand, doesn't matter the style. If it's you like it, then rock it. And that's the sure sign of a sneakerhead.
Yes. Do you is the key takeaway there. Hey, always a pleasure. I will be back on tomorrow with the mailbag. Look for the tweet that goes out in the morning looking for your questions. If you want to send in your questions now, send them to 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. Again, thanks to my guest, Jason Aponte, who is going on his podcast. Information below. Hit those links. Until then, 49er faithful, cheers to that playoff win.
Let's go.